So you might have seen that Puerto Rico has been plunged into darkness again with a full-scale island-wide power grid failure. If you think that this doesn't apply to you, I'm here today in this short video to tell you exactly why you should be concerned. So we all woke to the news this morning that Puerto Rico is having yet another island-wide power grid failure. This is the second time in I think 4 months that this has happened, and it comes just 1 month after Cuba suffered the same type of grid failure on their island. Now, you may be thinking that these types of power failures don't necessarily apply to you. Maybe you live in a location where your power grid feels fairly stable to you, but I am here to tell you, as somebody who works in cybersecurity and has worked in IT and cybersecurity for 25 years, I can tell you that the power grid is incredibly vulnerable. The more we modernize it, the more vulnerable it gets. And I won't get into a ton of detail about that, but what I wanted to say is, I think a lot of people, when they think about the power grid, they worry if maybe they live in Tornado Alley, or if they're in a hurricane-prone coastline in Florida or Texas or something like that. Because while there's no doubt that natural disasters can cause wide-scale power outages, the truth of the matter is a cyber attack is more likely to take down the power grid for an extended period of time than anything else. It's really interesting that Puerto Rico passed what they call the Puerto Rico Energy Public Policy Act, which was designed to build resilience into the power grid of Puerto Rico after Hurricane Maria, I believe it was, destroyed the power grid. Now, one thing that's interesting to me is if you look at this act, the acronym actually starts with the word PREP, or PREPA, if you want to look at the whole name of the act. I think that's kind of ironic because it points to exactly the case I am trying to make to you today. And that is that most people, when they're considering their emergency preparedness, don't give enough of a priority to energy needs. So this act in Puerto Rico, one thing I'll mention about it is it had a timeline goal of having 40% of the island on renewable energy by 2025. It's 2025. And yesterday they had an epic full power grid failure, 3 million people without power. So I'm trying to make this point to you. And I think this is an important one to make. And you will hear me say this in videos on this channel repeatedly. If you are relying on the government to save your ass in a natural disaster or a grid down emergency or a global pandemic, you are going to be sorely disappointed. It is critical and important that you own your preparedness when it comes to natural disasters and, frankly, staying alive. So why does this matter to you? Here's why it matters. There are so many people I see online in the preparedness community who talk about prepping for an EMP strike, or they talk about a zombie apocalypse, or there's things that they're concerned about. And I'm not saying they shouldn't be concerned about some of those things, but your number one priority when it comes to self-reliance and preparedness really needs to be a focus on power. Now, of course, long-term food storage, water safety, all of those things are super critical as well. But I'm trying to make the point to you that I feel like power awareness and power prepping is often overlooked. I want to encourage you today to consider what your power needs are. Consider where power lives in your preparedness plan and try to make it more of a priority today. Now, I get that power in general, when it comes to preparedness, is an expensive consideration. if you're talking about generators, if you're talking about solar, if you're talking about lithium power stations like the one I have here, even if you're talking about portable battery packs, I use these all over the place. Nothing's cheap when it comes to power. And if you're talking about backup generators, you're also considering the cost of fuel. And in an emergency, fuel supplies will be limited, the prices will go through the roof. It's an expensive proposition to think about when you're trying to consider what you're going to do in the case of a grid down emergency. So I understand that. But I think you need to consider making it a priority in your planning. Budget it if you need to, because to be honest, without power, things get really ugly really fast. So in closing, I just want to say that I hope you will take what you see in the news, these reports of power grid failures and all the other things that are happening. Don't just glance over them. Take them seriously. Look at multiple sources on the news to figure out what's actually going on, and ask yourself how it would be possible for something like that to affect you where you live and where your family lives. That's all I got for today. I appreciate you sticking around with me until I see you guys in a video again soon. Everybody be safe out there and take care. See ya.